3Z cam belts. G'day guys, it's Calvin from the Cartoon Company. The internet's an amazing place. Lots of information, and unfortunately lots of incorrect information or confusing information. And I find videos are a really great way to pass information on. I was looking at a bit of a thread on Facebook where a guy's been struggling with a VVti. And he had trouble with the cam gears. And my video was passed on for that. And then struggling with cam belt. So I thought the easiest way to do it is to do a cam belt job, or change the cam belt on a 3UZ I have here. Exactly the same as a 1UZ VVti, as far as the cam belt goes anyway. So I'm going to get my rattle gun. I'm going to try to do minimal editing. So we're going to try to run straight through it. There will be a couple of drops in it. I want to put a couple of photos of the marks. We're also going to talk about correct procedures as we go through it. My compressor's still just warming up, but and firing up and pumping up. But let's get this camera on my head. We're going to grab the 3UZ. This is my test 3UZ. Let's get it apart. We'll get a 14mm socket, 12mm and a 10mm. And I can see why there is confusion on these. So we should be able to clear that up pretty quickly. Take the alternator off, there's a 14mm there and a 14mm there. Press is good, we can speed up now. Just whipping all the 12mm bolts out, 12mm headed bolts. So this engine is on TDC at the moment. Let's whip a spark plug out to show. There we go. We'll pop a screwdriver down there. That looks like TDC to me. If I go back, it's definitely going down, forward, and definitely going down again. Let's go back to TDC. So I'm actually going past TDC, bring it up onto TDC mark there. So that is TDC. We'll get that crank pulley off. So there are 22, which is on this socket here. This engine comes apart a bit, so the crank pulley just slides off. And we'll take these top covers off. So the right hand cover has 4 bolts, or 3 bolts and a nut. The left hand has 4 and a nut. Whew. Now this cam grommet, if it is stuffed, I do recommend changing it. If it's a bit hard, They had one that came in, that grommet was chewed up all around here. It wasn't damaged, fortunately. This plastic cover here has got a clip up here and a clip in here behind the covers. Tensioner off, idler off. Because now let's have a look at some marks. Now if we remember, our crank pulley was on TDC. Very, very close to it. You'll see here there's a mark here, comes through and it lines up with the mark, not the T, with that mark there. Not with the T, the dot goes back to that mark. And that allows you to check your cam timing without seeing the little dit at the bottom. So you can just line it up on the TDC, and those are the marks that you line it up with. We'll take a photo of that for you. It's got a nice photo. So that's that one done. Let's get this bottom cover off and we'll have a look inside. Bottom cover, 4 bolts. Trigger wheel, 36 minus 2. 1, 2. There's hypothetically 2 missing. So if we go down to the bottom pulley now, you'll see right here, I've put a white mark in here from past. We go in here, there's your little dot. In there. Let's take a photo of that. Look at that. So that's taking the belt off to start with. Mark there, mark there. Very, very simple. Tensioner out. And you'll notice that I've lined it up before I've pulled it apart. And I do that every time. These are an interference engine. You don't want to be turning it around if you can. So here we have here, it is there. Confusing thing for some is there's another mark down the bottom here. So that is not the one that lines up with that little titty on the oil pump. It is the cutout at the back. But this is used for timing them up. If we look down the bottom here, there are no other marks at the bottom. Okay, there's no other marks. However, that one is used to line up the mark on the belt. So I find my red pen. So the day isn't so nice out there today. It's a bit wet, but it's still not bad. Over this way is Matamata. If you know New Zealand, that's where the Lord of the Rings was filmed. So I've applied some marks to the factory belt on the factory positions. There's a factory belt, 13568-59095. There's the factory belt. And we need to squeeze the tensioner. Here's the tensioner. Pop over to the vise. So this is the slow boring bit. It's taken me about 10 minutes to get this belt to bits. And the tension is probably going to take one of the longest single bits to do. So we're just going to let it squeeze up. Now hopefully, by the time I get this video up, the man will actually have it solved, have the problem solved. I live in an area where there is actually no land-based internet. I have to do it all through my phone. And my brother who lives on the property, he uses satellite internet. So it's a bit slow. Otherwise I steal Wi-Fi whenever I go out. I borrow it, so I can't give it back. Other things I noted, a lot of people don't understand how the VVti works. And they don't know what it means. So VVti, variable valve timing with intelligence. So it's different to the early days where they had, like the 4AG had VVti. VVti just was a switch on and off, so it had two positions for the cam timing. Whereas VVti, still computer controlled. However, it can be set anywhere throughout its range. It does use oil pressure to move the cam timing. It's got the actuators on the front. I did another video where we pulled that apart and had a bit of a look inside, but it's controlled as such by the ECU. One man suggested that with more oil pressure it got more advanced, and with less oil pressure it got less advanced. However, what they actually do is at idle, it's normally fully retarded. And then as you bring it up through the range, you give it more advance, and then right up high, the advance is dropped right off again because you want it fully retarded at high revs. Right, I've just popped that pin in. So you can reuse those tensioners. If I'm doing a full job, I don't use them. I don't reuse them. I always replace. Okay, so we've got the belt sitting on there. We've got the gears sitting on there. These are your VVti actuators. These are the VVti solenoids. On these ones, we only have the one cam sensor. Right, I've marked up the belt in the factory positions. Left cam, right cam. So this is the right side. This is my left hand, but this is the right side of the engine. This is the left side. It's actually got L and R on there, and I'm glad it does for people who don't know their left and rights. It's of course from the driving position, because we have right-hand drive cars and left-hand drive cars. We've got our belt. On the bottom there's the crank mark. Just sort of going to sit it in position like that. And we have a mark here, and there's dots on the front of the belt as well. So we push it, the crank line is going to line up with the dot on the bottom. So if I actually go under here, there's a line that comes up and it lines up with that dot. The next two dots are each side of the bolt hole, the pulling hole. If we watch this, if I put this around, these two lines, sit each side of the one that goes back to the titty on the oil pump. And I'm just calling it a titty to make sure you guys are paying attention, because guys always pay attention to titties. And then we bring it round up onto the cam pulley. And of course, it hasn't moved, which is fortunate. And we just run that belt round. And here's the line, comes to the dot, back to the line, the big line on the back of the cover. We bring it round here to this pulley. Just going to pull it out a little bit like that. Just going to pull it out just a little bit like this. And if you're struggling on your own, have a mate help you. And on she goes. And you can see here, here's the line, lining up with the line on the front, back to the line on the cover. Around there like so. The tensioner has proper bolts, and I do recommend that when you do that, when you put the tensioner in, you do put a little bit of Loctite on it. We're just going to give them a bit of a nip up. We're going to recheck our marks. I'll take a photo of that while we're here. And hopefully we can see them nice and clearly. There we go. I have a special big nut, and this is actually tight enough to turn over. With that tensioner sitting in place, that's going to be tight enough to turn over. So I've lined all the belt up, lined all the marks up. You'll see the keyway sitting up off probably about, there's 12, there's 3, 1 o'clock-ish. So when I turn this over, and once you put it all together, you should gently turn the engine over. This is just good practice. Now those lines on those belt isn't going to line up again. If you're not used to doing them, you could take the spark plugs out for this to make it really easy to turn over. And if it goes solid, which it won't if you've got the marks right, you want to stop, because these are an interference engine. So here's that dot again, but it's not the right one. That's going to the bottom. There we go. So line it up in there, double check that mark. Double check this mark, it goes along. It's got a little dit at the back, lines up with there, lines up with there. Perfect. Very easy, very simple. Now in theory, if you were using a genuine belt and you actually moved it round to the T, like that, this one doesn't line up. And I'll just do this to prove a point. So if you wanted to line this up with round in here, but it's not really in the right place. It doesn't actually line up nicely. Line that up with the T, line up with the T. It doesn't matter where you actually line it up as long as it goes back on the same point. And you always want it to be back to those proper marks. Every time. Oh, hey miss, what's up? So if I wanted to whip that belt off, I could take it off, I could put it back on in this position, but I'd always rotate it back to the titty on the front of the oil pump, that mark and that mark, every single time. I figured 10 minutes to take it apart, 10 minutes to belt off back on, and then 10 minutes to put all the front covers back on. I'm going to go over my time. Now I had some of these where they've been timed up wrong in the scissor gear. Set up like a Nissan where they both go the same way. If you understand Nissans, two pulleys on the front. It's going to rain and make it loud. And it didn't do damage. I've had one that dropped that grommet. Someone didn't know what they were doing. The grommet had gone down the front. It had been bouncing around. That one didn't do damage. Luckily, I thought it was. These are an interference engine. And these jobs are about good working practices. So always line it up before you pull it apart, so you know where the marks are. If you're worried, put extra dots on it. Now I've actually I'm pretty humbled because I've got some of the best conversion specialists, 1UZ conversion specialists in the world who watch some of my videos. And we've all got a few things in common. And one of them is, don't use shitty aftermarket belts. Use the genuine belt. They're not dear. And they are different prices around the world. They have the correct marks on them. And they last the best. In fact, over here, there's actually a Toyota warranty for professionally fitted genuine parts. So we're really lucky. We've got a system where all the factory parts are actually the same price. So all the genuine bits, all cam belts for V8s are the same price, all the tensioners are the same price, all the idlers are the same price. So it's really cool. And I only ever use factory Toyota cam belt parts, ever. And I use a heap of factory Toyota parts for other stuff too because they work the best. Anyway, good work practices. When you pull it apart, mark where the belt is, take note. When you put it back together, check it's in the same spot and do your 2 revolutions to check it lines back up. So the lines on the belt won't line up, but the marks on the pulleys will line up again. The titty on the bottom, cam pulley, and the cam pulley with the line, not with the T. And then what I'll also do is slide the pulleys back on and double check that TDC. So it'll sit in the same place. Then you know it's all good. I actually had one recently too, that aftermarket computer and the variable cam timing settings were all funny. It was faulting. So turned out to be a cam belt issue. And it was quite easy for me to find that. So let's put this back together. We've got the belt set up. All on. I'm happy, happy, happy. Probably like quadruple checked. Let's pull that pin. Rattle that off. Let's put this back together. So trigger wheel, make sure you put that in. And actually make sure it's straight. I had one of these years ago, non-VVti, and when they'd pulled it apart, they'd bent the trigger wheel. So when it was running, it was actually moving across the sensor. It blew igniters up really fast. It was fantastic. And it took me quite a while to find it. So we'll put this cover on. We're not going to start it with the rattle gun. Crank pulley, and it will be at TDC. It is. I do recommend when you put your crank pulley on that you do put a little bit of Loctite on it. I'm positive this will come apart again. Tensioner unit. Oh, I'm slow today, aren't I? Having trouble finding the hole. Upside down and backwards, there's the problem. That's better. Idler unit. We'll get this one right. Done. This cover. Now, clip here and a clip here. I could hear it go positively clicking in. Long bolt there, and all these bolts are the same length. There, over here, down here. Nope, it's the top one. 3 nuts. Here, here and here, and the one hanging off the rattle gun. $14mm headed there and there. Well, let's rattle those 12s up. Top idler and the alternator back on. Now I've got a heap of 3UZ stuff coming up. Okay, we've got our 2 top covers. Now are these covers, these little holders. I've had someone had a failure with one of those bits falling down. Wasn't one of my customers, one of my mates. So try to just check they're all in good order. And check the plastic covers in good. Double check mark, yep, and it's good. You gotta sit it down nice and low, push it straight on. This one's got the 5 or 4 with a nut. Cam grommet, as I said, if it's yucky, replace it. And the other side. Missed the tensioner, or the idler. Water hose. Oh, I got that wrong. I missed to put the water hose onto that bolt. And apart from the spark plug down number 1, it's back where it should be. My poor engine. So I hope that was helpful and cleared up some confusion on VVti cam belts. I don't know if I'm going to cut much of this out. I might put a couple of photos in and about it. I think it's nice to see it in a pretty raw form. And so I hope that was helpful, and we'll talk to you later.